Hello everybody, it's Starrapter here. Welcome back for another episode of This Week in Star Wars Canon. It can be hard to stay up to date on all the latest Star Wars material. That's where I break it all down for you guys every week on this channel, from the novel to the TV series to the comics and to the video games. This week we have 3 new comics. So let's start by talking about Poe Dameron, issue number 21. This is part 2 of Legend Found. So this series was all founded on the idea of Poe Dameron trying to find Lor San Tekka. Ever since issue number 1 this was mentioned, and we know in The Force Awakens he finally gets around to finding him to get the data for the key to find Luke Skywalker. So in this issue we are continuing that mission. We actually have a little bit of Lor San Tekka. He has been captured on Canon after trying to seek this Force relic. So we have Leia, General Leia herself of the Resistance, planning this mission to basically break him free and try to get the information. So we have General Leia, who arrives located in Moya. Then from Poe Dameron's story, we have him testing out Black One, his state-of-the-art X-Wing fighter. He's flying it around with Snap Wexley. Then we also have Jess Pava, who is continuing to beat herself up over the idea that she keeps killing all the astromech droids that fly with her, so she is trying to become independent. And that is basically the story. It could almost be called the Resistance comic at this point, because I don't feel like we get that much out of Poe Dameron, but there's a lot of other characters now that are becoming much larger as this series goes on. So let's talk about the positives of this comic. So I really enjoyed seeing General Leia. I mean, seeing her in a gown for the first time, I think, post Return of the Jedi. Like, she almost looks like her mother, and when I seen that image, I was like, ooh, wow, that kind of tugged at my heartstrings. And, you know, the artist does such a great job of really representing Leia well in this. I also enjoyed seeing the ruins of Dakar. It's great whenever we expand our view on what a planet could be. I mean, we know the base of Dakar. We've seen that plenty of times, and now we're going outside of that. We're seeing that there's these ruins, and that's where they're doing these test flights with Poe Dameron and Snap Wexley. So pretty interesting looking at that. It was also really touching to hear about Leia reminiscing about her mother, because she uses her mother's clothes as a way to get into Canon to try to get the vault that is eventually going to be how she gets to Lor San Tekka. So it was cool how she was saying, like, she never knew her mother personally, but she respects her, and she knows of this from other people that actually knew her, and images and stuff like that. Going more into depth with Lor San Tekka's character is something I really enjoyed from this series so far. We learn the name of this device that he was actually after in the last issue we see him with, and it is called the Kazarath device. And apparently this device implies that at one time, possibly, the light side and the dark side of the Force could have been one. They could have been balanced, and that is what his mission, Lor San Tekka's mission, is, to basically seek these relics and learn more about the history of the Force and of the Jedi. Another thing I thought was really cool about this issue is they brought back the super battle droids, and mind you, this is like 50 years after the Clone Wars, so the super battle droids look definitely updated, and they still look menacing as heck. So really cool seeing that. And again, I can't stress this enough, but Unzueta's artwork in these Poe Dameron comics is great. I don't think people give him enough credit, because he is consistent with this artwork. Like, every week does the character likenesses to their actors very well. So I really appreciate a great, strong story paired with artwork. I mean, that's what comics are really about. So I enjoyed this issue 21 of Poe Dameron. Moving on to the next issue this week, we have Jedi of the Republic, Mace Windu, number 4. If you guys watch these videos regularly, you know that I'm not a very big fan of this current miniseries of Mace Windu. But I will say this issue definitely changes the direction for the better. There's a lot of character development in Mace Windu. So let's get started about the plot. What is this about? Well, we have in the last issue, one of the Jedis that was part of his team decided to strike out against Mace because he finds out that the Republic wasn't there just for peace for this planet. They had an agenda too. And he doesn't like that. And he's accusing Mace Windu of being, disillusioned with the Jedi Order and all this stuff. So Mace Windu has to defend himself. At the same time that he's defending himself, he is also having flashbacks of his time as a Padawan underneath his master, which is a Miri Allen called Sislin Mir. So it's very fascinating because there's two stories going on in this overall story. So I will talk about the story in the past. So this is what's really interesting. It's before the time of the Clone Wars, obviously. He's still a Jedi apprentice, and we have Mace Windu being guided on this mission by his master, and she's trying to teach him not to be too aggressive, because from an early age, he has lots of anger, actually, and this is mentioned in a couple other canon material. Even from Revenge of the Sith, you could tell he's not your normal Jedi. So the mission to this planet is a planet where people that are born there have problems, like respiratory problems, and they get plagued by this illness. So what happened was the Jedi sent up this Jedi temple to give these people hope, and they had a Jedi once there. But when Mace Windu and his master go there, they know that there's not a Jedi anymore. Something happened to the Jedi, so they are there to investigate. They go in this Jedi temple, and it is known that somebody just usurped the throne. We don't know what happened with the Jedi, but this person is basically calling themselves a Jedi and basically just robbing everybody of the money. They are basically giving him money for him to just speak some garbage about, oh yeah, the Force is going to heal you, but I need more money. So this guy is just this terrible person. So of course Mace Windu goes in there along with their master, and they try to talk with this guy, and he turns it around on them, and now everybody wants to attack the real Jedi because he's accusing them of treason and all this crap. So it's a very interesting story. And in the meantime, we have Mace Windu in the present, and of course he's fighting this character. And it's a great issue because they actually deal with that character, and he ends up, taking him down, not killing him, but imprisoning him, and now they're going to continue their mission against ADW4 and the droids that they were there for from the start. So, getting into the specifics of the things I liked. First of all, I love anytime we get stuff that's before the Phantom Menace. I love stuff that is going to show us what the Jedi were doing peacekeeping-wise. We've always heard that they are peacekeepers, but in all of the Star Wars movies, all we see them is in a place of war. So it's great seeing this. We've seen a little bit of this in that Yoda arc in the Star Wars mainline, and a little bit of it in the Darth Maul comic, which also predates the Phantom Menace. So it's great seeing that. It's great seeing Mace Windu as a kid. He looks pretty badass even back then, I will say that. I did like seeing his struggle and how they juxtaposed his struggle against that crazy Baron guy on that planet back in his past, along with Procid. Like, there's literally scenes that look like they are from Revenge of the Sith of Mace Windu standing over the character with his lightsaber about to behead him. And both times he's getting, he's thinking of it and not going quite with it. So we do see that struggle with Mace's dark side come out, which is super fascinating. It's something that when I first heard of this comic announced, I was really hoping that they would delve into that darkness that Mace Windu has. So really, really enjoyed that so far. I do think that there is this interesting confrontation between Procid and Mace Windu in this. I'm not a big fan of the artwork, I'll be honest with you. I've never have been, but the way that they actually portray this fight, how they, lay it out for us in the rain, the blue lights, the purple lightsaber, the green lightsaber, it's really a spectacle to look at for sure. And there's another interesting piece of dialogue in this issue, and it has to do with Mace Windu mentioning there is no gray area for the Jedi. So is that a type of a meta statement from Lucasfilm saying, like, look, we know you guys are wanting a gray Jedi in, The Last Jedi. We want Luke to be a gray Jedi. I think that's Lucasfilm kind of sliding that in there for some hardcore fans. Like, look, it doesn't matter. You're either light or you're dark. There's no in between. I personally like the gray Jedi. Like them since Knights of the Republic, with Jolie Bindo's character sitting there on Kashyyyk. But anyway, so that was interesting how they slid that in there. One thing I want to note is we still don't have any clone troopers. I don't know what's going on. I hope they hold out for the clones, at least in the last issue. I don't know how you have a Clone Wars story without the clone troopers, but I'll leave it at that. And the last comic we have this week is called Star Wars Adventures number 4. As always, we have 2 short story comics in this one. The first one is called The Trouble at Tabrin, and this one focuses on Luke and Leia. So after the destruction of the Death Star, the rebellion needs allies. So they send Leia with her diplomatic skills, not as herself, but, covering as somebody else, along with Luke to this planet to get the Ishitib's acceptance to join the rebellion cause. Of course, nothing goes ever smooth for these characters, and they get a run-in with the Empire. Luke gets knocked out Leia luckily sneaks by, and now it's up to her to save Luke, and that's where it leaves off in a cliffhanger. And the next story is called Manus Makes a Stand, and it is about this character that must be brave and stand up against his Trandoshan, which is bullying his friend. And that's pretty much the concept of that story. So looking at these comics as a whole, talking about my positives, I want to talk about the Trouble at Tabrin. I really like these alien species called the Ishitib. I've always been a fan of these guys ever since I think they were introduced in Return of the Jedi. So it's cool seeing their planet. It's kind of an aquatic planet. Interesting. I also thought it was really cool that Leia has a ship that looks like a Naboo starfighter, and it's called Brea. And that is actually her adoptive mother from Alderaan. So very cool there. Also, Leia is just a badass in this issue. Can I just say that? Like, she kicks so much butt, just like running and jumping and everything else. So a great issue for that. Moving over to my positives for the other story, Manus Makes a Stand. I like the message of bravery, of just, thinking about things and just standing up for what you think is right. I like how they kind of show him thinking about Leia and Luke and Admiral Akbar. Pretty cool. I also like seeing a Trandoshan. Big fan of Trandoshans. Been a fan of Balsk for as far back as I can remember. So cool stuff there. And I noticed that there is a connection to another young reader novel. This one is called Join the Resistance. And apparently Manus is like the main character in that. And that leads me to say that I really like what Lucasfilm is doing for the younger readers. They are really connecting a lot of things between the Star Wars Adventures comic. We have lots of connections to the Star Wars Adventures and Wild Space book. And now we have these connections to Join the Resistance. So if you have young kids, you might want to introduce them to these because they're a great way to branch off to different mediums, books, whatnot. So great stuff by Lucasfilm there. And one last thing I want to say is thank you to everybody that participated in my book giveaway. You guys are awesome. So thanks for your continued support of the channel and what I do. So next week, you guys can look forward to Darth Vader #9. And we are also getting Journey to the Last Jedi, Canto Bight. It is a novel that consists of 4 novellas about the characters at that new location, Canto Bight. So that is going to do it for this week in Star Wars Canon. I want to thank you guys for watching. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I have plenty of other Star Wars content that I release on a weekly basis, so you're going to want to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of it. I'm Starrapter. Thank you guys for watching, and may the Force be with you always. Thanks for checking out the video. Please hit that thumbs up symbol. It helps me know that I'm making content that you guys enjoy. And if you enjoyed this video, I also include 2 videos down below you guys should check out. And please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps support me, and it notifies you guys of when I get new videos up on the channel. You can also contact me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Starrapter.